The Vilous universe is a collection of sci-fi and fantasy stories, art, and general concepts that was created by two Japanese artists, Mick Ono and Kiki CR, and is still being worked on to this day. If there's anything Vilous related that you already recognize, I'm guessing it would be circles. These guys have spread all over the internet ever since their creation in the mid-2000s. What you might not know about, though, is the larger world that this species and several others originated from. Everything I'm about to say takes place on a planet called Tal, with Vilous being the name of the sun that sits at the center of this fictional solar system. Life on Planet Tal can be broken down into two categories, the Eltis and the Talixians. A long time ago, before any of the events that are shown in this manga, only a single sentient Eltis race existed, and it was humans. There's not that much information out there about Tal's humans, but it seems that they looked nearly identical to us, and probably lived a lot like we do as well. Until one day, when everything changed. A mysterious and devastating environmental crisis struck the planet, causing Planet Tal to begin creating new forms of life in order to try and stabilize itself. This was the beginning of the Talixians. Compared to humans, Talixians are a bizarre and alien kind of life. Some are like plants, growing up towards the sky. Some are small and harmless animals, while others are predators, large enough to hunt the Eltis people. And a rare few have even developed the ability to communicate. Over time, Planet Tal became covered in these new Talixian biomes, leaving only a few places where the original Eltis wildlife and plants remained, such as the Livunk Mountains to the east, and Lake Colvillis to the south. I imagine Tal's humans struggled a lot to survive in this dangerous, changing world, but eventually, their bodies evolved to better fit this environment. And this resulted in the three Eltis races that we know of today: Cirgles, Nevreans, and Agudners. Now, with that bit of backstory in mind, let's talk about the manga itself. The Vilous manga started around 2015 and was split into 4 main episodes, with the final episode being unfinished and seemingly on hiatus at the making of this video. These 4 parts don't tell a single continuous story, and are instead more like fragments of the Vilous universe as a whole. They're here to provide a glimpse into what was happening during different time periods and across different parts of Planet Tal, as seen through the eyes of the modern Eltis races. For example, Episode 2, Dark Clouds of the Shigu, begins around year 23 of the rain calendar in the Riono region to the east. Meanwhile, Episode 3, At the Festival, takes place in my favorite location, Goldring, the big city to the south, and is set about 3 years after the events of the previous chapter. The length of each chapter increases drastically as the manga goes on as well. Episode 1 is only 8 pages long. Then you get to Episode 4 and it's a whopping 151 pages, and that's the one that isn't even finished yet. Episode 4 is a wild ride, man. It's the most confusing chapter by far, even with context. And also the saddest. A common theme seen throughout the manga is the dangers that the Eltis people face on a daily basis, usually, but not always, caused by the Talixians. Talixian biomes, as I've mentioned, give off this strong feeling of alien otherness, both in the art and the lore. Twisting nightmare landscapes, giant monsters with too many eyes, and all sorts of other things that would never exist in our world. They provide an element of horror that I think meshes really well with the fantasy setting, and the manga is not without its share of tense battles and unsettling character deaths. On an art side, the panels tend to have a lot of little details drawn into them, with good use of shadows and enough hatching to make me wonder how long each of these pages took. Some of these shots feel like they came straight out of a dream. The series does a good job of capturing this magic at several points throughout, treading the line between danger and a sense of wonder at the environment around you. There's also the fight scenes, which are just plain cool to watch. Look at them go. Now, the reason why I read this series in the first place is because I realized that, despite having seen circles around for years, I didn't really know anything about them. What were the differences between the northern and southern kind, the eastern and western? Why do they make those strange noises? How long do they usually live? And why is salt so important to all the Eltis races? These were questions I'd never had until I discovered the manga. Before then, I'd only thought of Circles as these dumb cheeseheads. Nevreans were some sort of bird creature that might have been related, and Agudners and Talixians might as well have not existed. Don't get me wrong, Circles still are dumb cheeseheads, but I found that there's a lot more to discover about the Eltis and Talixians, and for someone who's been really interested in fictional species like these for a while, I'm kicking myself for not looking into any of this stuff sooner. One limitation of the manga I'll bring up is that, unfortunately, there are almost no nevreans in it. A small group of them shows up in episode 3, but throughout the rest of the series, the only Eltis representation is Circles and Agudners. This is disappointing, but it also leads me into my next point, about why in the end, none of this is a deal breaker. When I first read through the Vilous manga, I was lost and confused. Where are all these places? What year are we in? Who is this? We do not know. What do all of these weird terms mean? And why does any of this matter on a broader scale? But these questions are what made me want to learn more, and they're the reason why I ended up browsing the wiki for hours and hours, trying to find answers and coming up with just as many new questions in the process. I know not everyone will want to do this, and that's understandable. Reading a bunch of Wikipedia articles to get the bigger picture is tedious, and doesn't really sound like fun. But if all of this is something you could see yourself doing anyways, then I think this series could be right up your alley. If you're willing to put in the time and the effort, then I think this manga can serve as a gateway into a much larger collection of art, stories, and characters, covering topics like biology, technology, different cultures, and so much more. I'm biased. Circles are still my favorite species of the bunch, but I've come to appreciate the nevreans, Agudners, and Talixians just as much as I learn more about them. The infamous Rain Silvas makes a couple appearances in this manga, and now I finally understand why she left such an impact on the Eltis' world. On the wiki, you can find info about the later parts of the timeline that the manga doesn't cover, such as all the cool advancements in technology and mingling of the races over the years. I love Gold Ring. Those are the articles I've probably spent the most time reading. Did you know that it has its own religion? Some Circles believe that when you go to sleep, your spirit travels to the bottom of the sea to listen to memories of the sun, and that's where dreams come from. So yeah, for fans of sci-fi, fantasy, furries, and horror, this may be just the right combination of elements to make for a great series. It's not a complete body of work, but I think the fragmented nature of the lore has its own kind of charm to it, and a lot of potential to grow, as long as there's people around to keep the flame going. Even if you don't want to dig into the wiki, I think the manga can be an interesting, if confusing read without any context. I rarely see Vilous stuff being mentioned around anywhere except for Circles, which is a shame. Give it a shot, and if you have any Vilous related questions or comments, leave them here and I'll see if I can answer them. See ya.